Most people generally don't have a very positive opinion of Amazon, the business. They may love the service and convenience that Amazon offers, but more times than not, people aren't exactly fans of Jeff Bezos or how Amazon is run. The media often portrays Jeff Bezos as someone who makes tens of billions while his everyday employees break their backs for minimum wage. There is some truth to this narrative given that Jeff Bezos does often make tens of billions every year, and his employees do have terrible working conditions. Their drivers are infamous for peeing in bottles, and their warehouse workers are often treated like disposable robots. One nuance that's rarely talked about, though, is the fact that Amazon does not actually make any money. And this has been the case for much of their entire history. A few years ago, they were able to achieve sustainable profitability with their retail business for the first time. But with inflation skyrocketing, their retail business has fallen back into the red by quite an amount. In the first 6 months of 2022, Amazon was able to achieve an impressive $143.6 billion worth of sales in North America. But to achieve this number, they had to spend $145.8 billion, meaning that they lost $2.2 billion. Outside North America, Amazon was able to achieve net sales of $55.8 billion, but it cost them $58.8 billion to fulfill these orders, meaning that they lost $3 billion internationally. While Amazon's executives like to play it calm when they talk to the media or shareholders, there is some evidence that they're actually scrambling internally. Likely the best example of this is all the rumors that they're gonna hold a second Prime Day in October. Apparently, they're not gonna call it Prime Day though. Instead, they're gonna call it Prime Early Access Sale. Whatever they call it though, this is clearly a move to capitalize on the holiday season and bolster their quarterly report. But why is Amazon's retail business losing money in the first place? And can the retail business ever become sustainably profitable? Fortunately for us, Amazon has been a public company for a long time, meaning that all of their financials for the past 25 years are all public. By far the largest category in which Amazon spends money is actually acquiring the products that they sell. If it's an Amazon branded product like a Kindle or an Alexa speaker, this consists of directly paying suppliers for the product and shipping it to their warehouses. If it's a private label brand or a third-party seller, however, this is the portion of the revenue that Amazon has to share with these parties. In the first 6 months of 2022, this number came out to being $132.9 billion. This is not a bad thing given that this is where you want Amazon to spend money. You want them to spend money on acquiring good quality products, and by the looks of it, they're spending over half of their revenue on acquiring products. But this is actually super misleading. You see, the variance in how much Amazon has to share with their sellers is insane. When it comes to large brands like Apple, Amazon has to hand over well above 90% of the revenue to Apple. But when it comes to FBA sellers, however, this number is usually closer to 20-30%, if that. And this is what leads to the vast discrepancy in quality across Amazon. Anyway, Amazon's second most expensive category is of course fulfillment. Shipping any product to any household in America within 48 hours, if not 24 hours, is by no means a cheap endeavor. It takes hundreds of thousands of warehouse workers, delivery drivers, pilots, trucks, planes, warehouses, boxes, packaging materials, and who knows what else. Within the first half of 2022, fulfillment cost Amazon $40.6 billion, which works out to a little more than a sixth of their revenue during the same time period. This means that, on average, whenever you buy something on Amazon, roughly 1/6 of your purchase price literally goes towards just getting it to you. Speak about expensive shipping. Moving on, we have the technology and content category. This includes all of the licensing fees that Amazon has to pay for Prime Movies and music. This also includes development and maintenance expenses for things like Alexa and Twitch. Within the first 2 quarters of 2022, these added up to $32.9 billion. And that brings us into our final major expense, which is sales and marketing. Amazon is actually rather conservative when it comes to running ads. Well, technically, this category did add up to being $18.4 billion. But in comparison to their net sales, this is not even 10%. There are a few other categories that Amazon spends money in, like general and administrative and miscellaneous expenses, but these aren't particularly notable. General and administrative came out to $5.5 billion, while miscellaneous expenses came out to $339 million. And it's really just the first four categories that really weigh down Amazon's bottom line. By the time they're done paying for those categories, they either have little money left or they're in the red. If Amazon's retail business is at best a low-margin business, how did Amazon become a trillion-dollar company in the first place? Well, this is not a new question by any means. In fact, Jeff Bezos and his executive team were thinking about this not 5 or 10 years ago, but 22 years ago. This is when the dot-com crash unfolded, which essentially wiped out Amazon stock. Amazon stock would crash 95%, but Amazon was actually one of the lucky survivors. The vast majority of internet companies straight up went bankrupt and shut down. But while Amazon survived this bloodbath, it was clear to Jeff Bezos that they couldn't just keep betting on retail. If they truly wanted to become a leader in retail, he knew that they had to spend decades building up logistics, fulfillment, and product diversity. And all of that would probably leave the business in the red. In the 1990s, Jeff was able to use the hype surrounding internet companies to raise extraordinary amounts of money to keep the money pit afloat. But with the dot-com crash, that was clearly no longer viable. So the executives started brainstorming about how they could sustain Amazon's retail business. They didn't want to spend a lot of effort entering a completely different industry or inventing something new, because that would just take away from their retail business. So they looked for ways in which they could leverage what they already had. One of their first ideas was to create a service called Merchant.com that could help people create online stores. Amazon already had a lot of experience building an e-commerce business, so they figured they'd be pretty good at helping others do the same thing. And given their reputation within e-commerce, they were actually able to attract some high-quality clients like Target. But very quickly, they realized that offering this service was more of a full-time gig rather than a side gig. So they shut down Merchant.com pretty quickly. Ironically, Shopify has since started a full-on business around just this, and at the peak, they were worth over $200 billion. But anyway, going back to the struggling Amazon, they had to find new options. Leasing out their expertise wasn't quite working, so they started thinking about what else they could lease out. They could lease out their fulfillment service, and this is something that they would eventually do. But as a startup, this was too big of an undertaking. Something that was easy to lease out, though, was their computer infrastructure. They had plenty of servers, databases, and networks. What if they just leased these out? And that right there marked the beginning of Amazon Web Services, or AWS. Most people have never heard of AWS and will probably never buy an AWS offering. But this is the secret that has been keeping Amazon alive. While Amazon's retail margins aren't that impressive, the same cannot be said about their cloud business. In terms of revenue, AWS doesn't pull in all that much in comparison to Amazon's total revenue. In the first 6 months of 2022, AWS pulled in $38.1 billion, which works out to roughly 1/6 of Amazon's total revenue. But AWS carries a monstrous operating margin of 32%, which leaves them with an operating income of $12.2 billion. Now, compared to Amazon's total revenue, this is still not that much, but it has been enough to bail out their retail business for the past 16 years. Without AWS, Amazon would have lost about $5.2 billion from the retail business within the first half of this year. But with AWS, Amazon ended up profiting just under $7 billion. Now, of course, that's just operating income. After Amazon wrote off $15 billion due to losses from Rivian and other investments, they were back in the red with a net loss of $5.8 billion. Also, we should mention that that's with the $2 billion tax rebate. Without this rebate, Amazon would have lost $7.9 billion. And if it weren't for AWS, that loss would have jumped up to over $20 billion. Ironically, that's about how much Walmart profited in the most recent 12-month period. So clearly, Amazon's retail business nor their investments are performing especially well right now. But can Amazon turn things around? Well, it depends on how you define turn things around. If you define it as simply, can Amazon's retail business become profitable again? Then the answer is absolutely. As Amazon hikes Prime membership fees and FBA seller fees, they're essentially passing on inflation to customers and sellers. And it's just a matter of time until they're able to squeeze back into the green. But if we define turn things around as becoming truly profitable, then things aren't so clear. Margins across the retail industry are generally just not that great. Walmart, for example, has dominated North American retail for decades. But even Walmart is only able to achieve a 2.5% net margin. Even at their peak, they weren't able to cross a 4% net margin. A similar trend can be seen with Target as well. Target was able to reach a peak margin of 6.5% during the pandemic, but that's already coming back down to their average of 4%. While Amazon does not have to pay for stores like these guys, Amazon ends up spending all that money on fast home shipping, so it really doesn't make a difference. While I don't think Amazon's retail business will perpetually lose money forever, I also have a tough time ever seeing them cross a 10% net margin. So we'll probably never see Amazon's retail business reach the insane 20, 30, 40% margins of their FANG peers. But that's just the reality of the industry that they're in. Alright, boo-hoo. A massive corporation doesn't actually make as much money as you might think. But why does that even matter? Well, the reason that might matter is because of Amazon stock. Amazon stock has historically always traded at a high PE ratio, which is the ratio between a company's earnings and their market cap. Mature companies generally trade for a PE ratio of 10, but Amazon is trading for a PE ratio of almost 110. Historically, this was tolerated because Amazon was growing so fast. I mean, they have yet to have a year-over-year decline in revenue. But at the same time, it's also clear that they're starting to level out. This isn't a bad thing, it's actually just natural. But it also raises a lot of red flags as to whether Amazon should have such a high PE ratio anymore. Investors are starting to become wary, and this is already evident in the charts. Amazon was the only FANG company whose stock didn't go vertical during 2020 and 2021. Their stock has basically been going sideways for over 4 years now. For perspective, Apple stock is up 175% since 2018, even after accounting for the recent sell-off. So there's no doubt that Amazon stock has stalled. The real question is whether this is simply a pit stop or a sign of something much more bearish. Are you a fan of Amazon, the business? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you wish that this bear market would just be over already. And of course, consider checking out our Discord community to suggest future video ideas and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.